My, we have to stop meeting like this, don't we? No, you're right, we can't stop because I love it. Well, I recently polled you guys once again, and we have yet another outstanding... Okay, sure. So buckle up, baby, because we have yet another 100 Days in Vanilla Expanded RimWorld. Ah, truly, there's nothing like it. Hey, wait a minute, what's this? Ah, son of a bitch. On the first day, fine, it would appear that we now have an infestation in our dining room that we're going to have to deal with, which is a little problematic since Kapak is having a food binge. Oh well, here they come. We, of course, immediately began wrestling them big old bugs, and eventually we ended up taking down one of them, and the other one was still at large, but eventually we took it down as well, and things were going pretty good. The only thing left, of course, was to destroy the hive, which only took about 2.5 seconds. We then began tending to our wounded, but unfortunately we still had quite the mess to clean up from the 100-day battle from the previous video. Speaking of messes, here's one for you. Kapak ended up getting an infection in her right arm, but that's a problem for later. Right now we have all this equipment to try and, well, equip. We'll give that infection some time to fester, like a nice soup or chili. Ah, done festering yet? Sure, looks like it. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut that off. Oh well, we'll try to replace it with a bionic arm or a stick or something. A little bit of time later seemed like the perfect time to go down to the ancient danger that the Imperials cleared out for us and take any loot that we could find. Well, we definitely have plenty of weapons. We then began carrying everything all the way back home where Madam was working like a mad woman on researching biofuel refining, which she eventually did. We're trying to make a beeline for vanilla vehicles. After that though, we ended up recruiting Skisor. Stupid name, but he was part of the Waster faction that raided us last video. And just in case you forgot, like I did, he has one hell of a shooting skill, so I decided to give him a charged sniper rifle. We ended up building him a comfy little cabin attached to the others. We would then also end up expanding our base walls to take in new territory, and with said walls, I would also add an additional wall made of steel to ensure our ample protection. The first thing we built in the new territory was a battery room, because we're gonna need a lot of batteries for a lot of power for a big old base. Late one evening though, we ended up having some caravan animals wander in, and I couldn't help get the feeling of deja vu. I'm sure it's nothing. Unfortunately, all that yak shooting caused a little bit of a forest fire, so we ended up having to build some packed dirt around our base to ensure it doesn't burn down. Then I decided that we should build a new and much better cooking and kitchen area, but unfortunately it was interrupted by a bunch of damn dirty raiders. It appeared to be a tribe of impids who were preparing before attacking, which would inevitably be their downfall, for we had other plans. We immediately rushed in like lightning and killed every single one of them, except for a few who fled. Then we started working on our pretty kitchen again, which honestly took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but in the end, look at all this nice, high-tech, beautiful equipment we have to cook with. And now that we have that completed, we can use our old kitchen as a bit of a workshop or a production room. Probably one of the most important benches that we built in here was the garage bench. Now this is actually going to allow us to create car parts to build vehicles. And oh boy am I excited. We ended up having a trader come by who was trading weapons. They didn't have anything interesting that we could afford, but we sold them some stuff. This also made me remember that I should apply the tech prints from the last video. Then for a while, I just sat around, looked at our gorgeous base, let time pass, and we researched some more stuff, and that was about it. But then I decided, since we're researching all these new cooking techniques and stuff, we should really try to get started with that. So we have all these berries, and we're going to start making some desserts for everyone. Now, of course, these are extremely easy to make because we are creating these simple ones, and the best part about it, after we make these and people eat them, they actually get a very teeny tiny mood boost. I also decided that we should try to move all of our farming production and whatnot down to one of the corners of the base so that it's not getting in our way. Some time later though, I noticed that Madam keeps having these mental breaks, and it looks like it has to do with her ideology, so I thought to myself, we have that joy wire, we should really install it in Madam, so we done that. Thanks to the Glitter World meds and Skizor's great medical skill, it went smoothly. Then before day 25, we just kind of relaxed and had a good time. We built some dread dressers and plant pots. We just sat around in our beautiful farm and looked at our amazing crops, and then, oh look, it's day 25. Well, 125 to be exact, but you know what I mean. Hey, how's it hanging? Got a quick question for you. Are you mentally unstable? Oh, that's perfect. I have just the attire for you. Introducing the Rat Knight Mentally Unstable t-shirt, a very festive wear. Ah, not festive enough for you, huh? Maybe you'd like something a little bit more spooky. Or perhaps you're having something of a sad boy hour. No worries, there's a shirt for that too. Of course, if you're like me and you have too many t-shirts though, maybe you prefer to drink out of something with my face on it. Whatever your preference though, I've got you covered over at ratknightapparel.com. And now, let's get back to the video. Alright though, kiddos, it's time for another boss battle. Now obviously, of course, we all understand just how dangerous these boss battles are, but these two ladies are especially dangerous. Two ancient soldier sisters that go by the names of Salt and Pepper respectively. Pepper carries 2 charge SMGs, and Salt actually carries 1 big explosive ouchie stick. As one could imagine, both of them were extremely fast. Salt, though, with her big boomstick, scared the absolute shit out of me. Luckily, we ended up killing her first. We then immediately took cover because Pepper was peppering the absolute shit out of us with bullets. But with her sister as dead as a damn doornail, she decided to steal what she could and run away. However, luckily for us, the only thing that she managed to steal was her sister's giant Zeus hammer. And even though we didn't kill her, and yeah, sure, we got our asses kicked for a moment there, I still consider it a win. In the meantime, though, we worked on plenty of car parts and chem fuel so we could eventually create a beautiful little van. That would also be parked in a beautiful small little wooden garage. Now, this van was actually more of a bus, and it had a very interesting name. But I decided that I had a better name. A name that was much more classy and bougie. Ah, much better. We also started production on stone cutting because everything we've built right now is out of wood and it would just take one fire to destroy it all. Now, some time later, I remembered that Skizzer was actually Psykite dependent, and I kind of forgot about that, so he's in a coma and almost dead. So I thought the fastest solution was going to be to trot some colonists out in our very brand new van and go buy some Psykite tea or something, right? But unfortunately, I had some issues with the van and loading a caravan with it, and I couldn't get it to work. And then I also remembered that it really doesn't matter because we don't have any friendly settlements nearby, so we don't have anyone to trade with. But then I remembered probably the easiest and fastest solution, other than buying it, would be for us to just grow it in some tilled soil, so we started doing that. We then ended up having a war for pay quest from the Empire. Normally we'd tell the Empire to shove it up their ass, but we kind of want to kill some people, so we accepted. While we were waiting for the large raids to show up though, we ended up taming a red panda. He was our new best friend and his name was Tomato. But of course, the first group of raiders came. They were actually in several groups for the first raid, and then the second showed up in several groups as well. Eventually, the poor fools decided their hairy balls were big enough for them to come and attack us, which was a bad idea because all we did was shoot, rip, cut, and tear through them. One of them from the first raid had a really good melee stat and some other decent stats, so we decided to take them prisoner. The next raid followed shortly thereafter, and believe it or not, these hairy man babies ended up getting their asses absolutely blistered. One of them had identical stats to the other prisoner that we took, but the previous prisoner actually had unwavering loyalty, so we decided to execute them. And apparently the whole thing was kinda awkward. Finally though, sometime later, we managed to harvest some psychoid leaves, we made some tea out of it, and then we gave it to Skesser, whatever his name is, and he was feeling right as rain. For a while, we finally took some time out to just work on the roads around the base, something that I feel like we've been neglecting for quite a while, but is a pretty crucial part of movement and looks. Then some time later, we began expanding the walls of our base to the north, and notably, we're actually not using wood this time around and steel, we're actually using granite blocks and steel from all the stones we've been cutting up, which is pretty cool. However, our fun was interrupted by a bunch of tribes people who wanted to have a fist fight with some mechanoids or some shit. Nah, they're just gonna die. Oh my god, they actually won. Like, this actually happened. With that being said though, kiddos, it is now day 150, so it is time for yet another boss battle. Now, I am pausing this one before we even begin because these dogs are so fast that I can't even keep up with them. We have 2 Labrador Retrievers with bionic body parts, body armor. We have a Thrumbo that has bionic body parts. It also has power armor, and we have Pepper, the sister of Salt, who we murdered on day 125. And real quick before we begin this, everyone's always asking how I do these boss battles, so I actually make these custom raids using Character Editor, if you were curious. But like a flash of lightning, the dogs were coming right at us as Pepper and the Thrumbo trotted behind. The dogs were very fast, but luckily we were faster. Actually, our traps killed them, and our turrets. Pepper arrived shortly thereafter, though, immediately destroying all of our turrets, essentially, with a Doomsday rocket launcher, and then immediately began firing upon us with a charged thumper. She immediately killed our Imperial slave, but we had no time to think about that as we were fighting for our lives. We tried our best to gang up on her and overwhelm her with our numbers, and thank God this eventually worked. But even after killing Pepper, we still had this massive power armor wearing Thrumbo that was occasionally running around on fire and then occasionally also attacking us. Eventually, though, it did decide to flee, but it was also trying to kidnap Casper as it was fleeing, and so we had to come out and shoot it. He dropped Casper, and we're good now. A very strange day 50 and boss battle, if I do say so myself. And even though having to put out all of these base fires really sucks a big fat ass, it's okay because at least we're still alive and here to put them out. Well, most of us, at least. I gotta say, though, I'm not too bad at surviving in these series and videos, but I really lose animals a lot, and it makes me sad. But rebuilding our base and our defenses makes me feel a lot better, and I hope that seeing it happen makes you forgive me for letting Tomato die. And now a song in his honor. That is all, Skisser. Go back to your work. Anywho, though, we eventually recruited Bai, which was one of the big furry bastards that raided us previously. We let him equip everything that he needed, and now he's part of the team. I also thought since we keep getting our asses handed to us around every corner, it'd probably be a really good idea to go ahead and build a hospital or med bay. That way we can tend to ourselves pretty good. Then, after purchasing plenty of components from a trade ship, we were able to rebuild all of our turrets, and we also built a brand new flame turret as well. Now with our defenses back up and running, I thought it could be fun to go out and attack one of these frigate ships. They're apparently something to do with mechanoids. I have no idea, but we're going to find out. Now, as the caravan was out gallivanting around, Madam was actually back at the house researching geothermal power, and eventually she got it completed. We would have to wait for the others to come home before we could build it because she has basically no crafting skill, but that's alright. And speaking of our caravan, shortly thereafter, they finally arrived at one of the frigates that we had planned on attacking, and I must say that I was actually surprised with the large mechanoid presence. For whatever reason, I wasn't so sure what we could do here. But then I had an idea so crafty, so amazing, just so crazy that you may actually not believe that it worked. But believe me when I say that everything you're about to see is for real and true. I forced them all to run away. Yeah, look, there was no chance in hell of us beating all of those mechanoids, and someone was almost definitely going to die. I'm not doing that. Look, I might be an ugly, smelly, disgusting rat, but I'm not a big dummy. I'm not about to get any more of these people killed than I have to. And I'm glad I didn't get anybody killed because Gray can now build a geothermal generator once he returns home. Ah, splendid power. I also decided that a real fun idea and building project, instead of living in these shitty shacks of wood and whatnot, now that we have all the stone, maybe we could build some actual proper stone homes for everyone. So that's exactly what we decided to do. We even attempted to reuse the wood from our previous homes as a fine wood flooring in our new homes. Unfortunately, though, we were interrupted by the Empire, who had come to siege us. They had landed not too far from the base. It was actually near the ancient danger where the previous Imperials killed all the mechanoids, yada yada. Anyways, they started setting up their mortars. But you know us, we love taking the fight to our enemies instead of vice versa, so we immediately rode out on our deer. For today, we would look danger in the eyes and say, "Not today, danger, maybe tomorrow," or, you know, something to that effect. The Imperials would begin chasing us all the way back to our base, where we would begin trying to lay a trap, but unfortunately, Capoc would not make it. But by golly, the rest of us might still have a chance. Thankfully, our turrets and our traps pulled most of the weight. We ended up defeating them, and we actually ended up capturing one after beating him down. As for the others, we were none too interested in actually capturing them, but we did like all the armor that they had on, so we stripped them and took all their clothing. And finally, it was time for us to put our old friend Capoc to rest. She served her friends, nay, her family well, and her colony. She also had the best damn green thumb we'd ever seen. Rest easy, friend. In the meantime, however, we would continue stripping and wearing the armor of the Imperials, and after that was all said and done, we really had quite the arsenal at our fingertips. Plus, we wore it much better anyhow. And with the immediate threat gone, we would continue working on our brand new residential building. But then I decided, as a sign of our love and respect to Capoc, we should name the last Dryad that she had ever spawned in after her. And of course, that's exactly what we did. She may live on through this Dryad. Dryad? Something. Hey, look at that though, we have a bunch of dromedaries. I mean, we didn't really need them because we have the Shaggin' Wagon, but I'll take them. We ended up having an orbital combat supplier swing by, and we ended up selling them a bunch of our junk for this nice shard rifle thing. And as a fan of the Halo series, and this being based on what I presume is the Needler from the Halo series, I'm very excited. But then we ended up having a man-hunting pack of Mega Sloths, and all I'm gonna say is it's more meat in our freezer. Even though they got pretty close to taking out Skizzer. They come to the southern entrance of our base where we swiftly and promptly kicked their furry asses, and then we went to the north section of the base to fire upon their brethren. Those few that still remain tried their hand once again, and our traps and turrets and our guns in our hands ended up destroying them, just as God intended and as we assumed would happen. And boy, I'll tell you, there's nothing like beating down a bunch of furry indigenous creatures to make you and your friends have a nice meal. Wait, what? Never mind all that. We're busy, damn it. We're busy carrying all the shells from the previous siege back home where we could use them in the mortar that we also took. Which was pretty crucial, especially since we're having to repair our defenses and whatnot, as day 75 is just around the corner. Darn it, I meant day 175. Anyhow, we have a bunch of people hunting in our territory with a flamethrower. That's interesting. Well, I hope these hunters are well prepared, because it is now day 175, and everybody knows that means there's a boss battle. Now look, I know for a fact that I don't have to explain to you how dangerous this boss battle is, because we have 3 of these power armor bionic Thrumboians, and last time we only took on 1 and almost got our entire colony destroyed. So, you know, this should be a real hoot. Now the speed at which these Thrumbos could run was incredible. Incredibly bad for us, as they basically ran past most of our traps and the turrets could barely get a shot in at them. And I'm not going to lie to you, realistically my strategy here was to try and keep as much distance from them as possible, hope they destroy enough stuff that they're happy and they leave, and maybe kill 1. And in the end I kinda got my wish. They began trying to run away and kidnap people. Luckily that didn't happen, but we didn't even manage to make a dent in any of their armor, and they got away scot-free. We immediately began tending to our wounded because those Thrumbos packed quite a punch, and everyone, including our Dryad creature, was very injured. And of course our defenses had been left in complete shambles, so I decided to add another section onto the left side of the entrance with more turrets to try and help us with upcoming raids. Then some time later we ended up having an item stash nearby the base, so I said let's send somebody out and see what we can do with that. I thought to myself that this item stash could hold some really good weapons or armor, or just something that we could use. On the way there though, back at home, we ended up recruiting Sabas, which was one of the Imperials that had attacked us recently. He was one hell of a fighter, but not good at much else, so we decided to let him just kind of sweep the floors. Then we had finally arrived at the item stash. We had 3 man-hunting Jaguars that needed their asses kicked, so of course we obliged very quickly. And of course after doing so, we would then open the item stash. I can't wait to see what? Medicine. We traveled all this way for 13 medicine. I mean, it's good, don't get me wrong, but not what I wanted. Oh well, I said to myself, life happens. Maybe we'll hit up this ancient complex on the way back home. And so we did, and I thought this was going to be super easy, and it kind of was, but things became a lot more complex than I assumed they were going to be. For you see, we started blasting open holes in the walls and whatnot, just in case there's any massive fires and stuff, and there were some sleeping mechanoids inside, and out of nowhere, a fire happened. And I think, now I could be wrong, but I think it is this teeny tiny little thing here. It kind of looks like a trip mine that I didn't notice. And of course the problem with that was, since everyone was on fire, they were all scrambling through the rooms, and a mechanoid woke up, and then we had a gunfight with it, and the shit started hitting the fan. I started trying to kill the other mechanoids ahead of time before they woke up. After that was done, we went room to room trying to collect any resources. Another fire broke out. It was all one big shitstorm, but in the end nobody died, so I guess that's a win. Then of course it was time for us to head all the way back home. Unfortunately, we didn't really have much to show for our travels, except for some ancient urns, which we promptly put in everyone's bedrooms as well as our dining hall and whatnot. Sometime later, we once again had another trade ship passing over, and this time around we sold them some more junk, and we actually ended up buying a bionic leg. Now this bionic leg was for our good deserter pal Casper. Skizzer ended up installing it, and it all went pretty smooth. Nobody died, which, believe it or not, is a pretty important step when you're installing installing bionics. For a time, we just continued working around the base. I'm not gonna lie, I feel pretty guilty because the base doesn't look super pretty and I really haven't done anything about that, so that's what we're trying to do now. But then we ended up having a Forsaken Patriot named Bosco calling from nearby. Apparently there's an unknown threat. Of course we accepted because we need more manpower, and I'm pretty glad we did. He was alright at most things. He was a pyromaniac though, which was interesting. Something else kind of interesting, there was immediately a blood moon after he arrived, and he began visiting the grave of our Imperial slave, which he didn't even know. So Bosco is a little bit of an oddball, but that's okay. And of course during this time, Madam was hard at work with her research, and eventually she had managed to research fabrication, something we'd been working on for a while. Thankfully, one of the things we unlocked with fabrication was armored walls, so we started building some of those around the front entrance of our base, like some armored embrasures and whatnot, and basically these just are a lot harder to destroy. After that though, we ended up having a faction contention nearby, so 2 or 3 rival factions are basically fighting for some resources, so I thought it might be fun if we headed that way. And of course, you know we gotta take the Shaggin' Wagon out for this. This battle was absolutely massive. We had the Empire, we had some toxic wasters, and we had a bunch of mechanoids fighting for resources. And then of course, naturally, you had 3 of our people in the old Shaggin' Wagon trying to creep up on the mechanoids where the resources lay before anybody noticed us. Now of course, this was much easier said than done, because driving a big steel bus right into the middle of a battle draws a teeny tiny bit of attention. Now we did manage to get out, take some of the items though, and then they started shooting at us. The bus was leaking chem fuel all over the place, and then the engine broke down. Sabas was dead, and we tried to make a retreat as soon as possible. We had planned on leaving the bus behind, and that's exactly what we did in the end either way, but the wasters began fleeing. I suppose they and the Empire had killed enough of each other, along with the mechanoids. Anyhow though, we still lost Sabas, and the Shaggin' Wagon as well. And we really only managed to come out of that with a pain stopper and some advanced components, so it wasn't exactly worth it in my opinion. Not too long after arriving home though, we had a great surprise, an infestation in our workshop. This was apparently the unknown threat following Bosco, so I guess it was worth it, but there was only one way for us to deal with this many bugs. Since we had so much chem fuel lying in the workshop, I decided that we should move our mortar and shells to the other side of the base and bomb our own workshop. And this kind of sort of worked. It didn't exactly work out perfectly, but it did injure enough of the bugs and catch them on fire that they were running around and they didn't really notice us just blasting them to bits. The only downside, of course, is we lit the entire workshop on fire and destroyed every single production bench that we had in there, along with our comms console. But sometimes you have to sacrifice a few people to make an omelet. Wait, what? No matter though, it wouldn't take us very long at all to build a brand new comms console, as well as just start repairing the entire workshop and get it back in tip-top shape for some more production. A little bit of time later, we ended up having a shuttle crash not too far from the base. Apparently, we could either capture or rescue the crew. If we rescue them, some of them might be willing to join us, so we were the nice guys and we took all 3 of them in. We began tending to their wounds and hoped that our kindness would be repaid with them willing to join us here. And of course, if they didn't, we could always capture them. Funny enough though, to my surprise, by morning, 2 of them had already joined us, Pak and Marin. Now, unfortunately, by this point, I've sold most of the great weapons and armor that we had for silver, so they would have to make do with what we had lying around. Interestingly enough, though, we ended up having a trade caravan come by not long after that, and they actually had some warrior gene things, and they were apparently experimental gene packs or something, so, you know, naturally, we installed them on our 2 newest members just to see what would happen. Honestly, I expected them to die, but apparently this gave them a venom gland and a pneumatic claw hand. Oh, now that's fancy. Late one evening though, we had yet another faction assault within our territory. We had some pig pirate people that were going to throw down with some tribes people, and we really didn't give a shit and they killed each other. So that was pretty cool. In the meantime though, days would pass and not really too much went on. We had a small forest fire, we worked around the base, you know, the usual shit. We ended up mining plenty of silver and steel. Then we had something called a psychic bloom, so there was basically going to be an aurora in the sky indefinitely, or at least currently indefinitely, and there's going to be a bunch of flowers sprouting. I don't know, but it was pretty cool. Before day 200 rolled around though, I wanted us to look good, so I had thought about this ahead of time and planted some dye plants. We harvested those and then we began dyeing our armor. And with that, my friends, we were finally ready. Day 200 was upon us, and of course, you already know, it's time for a boss battle. Before this this boss battle begins though, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for watching and enjoying these videos and being as wonderful as you are. And I also want to take a second to just appreciate how gorgeous our people look. As you can see, this time around I didn't do anything too special, I just spawned in a massive Imperial raid. And I want to point out that I am not exaggerating when I say that this battle was the most difficult battle that we have had this entire 200 days. It wouldn't have been near as bad if we had landed any of our mortar shots, but unfortunately we didn't, and they started ripping through our defenses. And then they started ripping through and overpowering our colonist. We fought back fiercely though, destroying our mortar and shells at one point to try and maim and kill as many as possible. This did manage to injure many of them, but they were still coming. At one point, Gray had to jump away with his jump pack and begin firing at them from afar. Eventually though, they did start fleeing after we had killed and injured several. And this is one of those situations where it's like we won the battle, but we've yet to win the war. The Empire is still out there, of course, but what I'm referring to is all of our injured and dying comrades here on the battlefield. But my friends, we have defeated this last boss battle, and we have also made it to day 100, so unfortunately, this video is completed. This video is over. But if you would like to find out what happens to our comrades, we can do another one for 300 days, we can do one for 500, we can keep on going, baby, and I'd be more than happy to do that because I am having a lot of fun. And of course, it does seem like you guys are as well, so if you are, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. Be sure to like and subscribe and all that stuff. If you haven't already, it really helps me out, and I really appreciate it, and I love you so much for doing it. But until next time, my friends, I must bid you farewell. I love you. Goodbye.